Right, there's a look outside the RSN studios. We'll bring it right to the studio because we have a surprise guest, and I'm very glad that he's here. Ian Scully, a documentary filmmaker. Good morning, Ian. How are you?
Good morning. Nice to be here.
Nice to have you.
Bright and early here.
It is. Well, welcome to my life. This is every Sunday morning. But you've been busy because just last night you were showing your new documentary that you've been working on since 2002. Tell me, how did you get into that?
Well, actually, it's not. It did come out a number of years ago, but it did take quite a while to produce. There's a lot of ski history, as the people around here know. There's a lot of ski history located right here in the Conway area. I wasn't so much aware of that. I grew up in and knew a little bit about the history in the Franconia area, which I grew up in.
Well, I think we share that because around here, Herbert Schneider just got awarded the Spirit of Skiing. So we both have a lot of Austrian influence, and you're Austrian also.
From my mother's side.
Great.
Even though my name is a very Irish sounding, Ian Scully, so no one would guess that, but I grew up speaking German at home. But the way that I was able to make the connection with North Conway, oddly enough, was through one of my trips to Austria to visit family there. I was going through the American Ski Instruction certification process, which is actually relatively rigorous, and but there's not a heavy historical component to it. And which was one of the reasons I undertook this this project, because it was actually over there in St. Anton that I met and skied for the first time with Christoph Schneider.
Oh, great.
And so it kind of went from over there and came back over to here, and then sort of the story unfolded in terms of we interviewed Herbert, but also the Villars were very, who were also close friends with the Schneiders over in Franconia. So I got to imbued with the history there, but it was through their stories that I became aware that there was a much bigger story than, even though this may be the epicenter because of Hannes came over here, there were, quote, his disciples, and actually you're seeing some of the footage here from the film in the background, that those disciples spread out all over the Americas, really.
Right, absolutely, because you mentioned Sun Valley.
Sun Valley was
another.
Yes, Sun Valley, and then there's actually a connection like with the Sugar Bowl. Maybe people haven't heard of it that much, but that's the ski area where that, in a sense, lately Darren Rolfs made famous, and that was a completely Austrian ski school for a while, and that even has interesting connections because Mike Vigeli of helicopter ski fame, he ended up teaching at the Sugar Bowl.
Yeah.
And but it's a connection that runs all the way from Hannes's generation. Then there was a second generation that came after Hannes and his disciples, and then all the way to the third generation. And they were sort of the foundation of much of skiing in the United States. But the reason why also has to do with political and economic reasons, because you think of why would the Swiss didn't really have the need that the Austrians did to leave their country, because they weren't completely bombed out.
Right, absolutely. Attacked and, by the Nazis.
Taken over by the Nazis, and then also eventually just getting completely bombarded and their economy down in the pits. So there was all kinds of reasons beyond just strictly skiing that they came, and that's why this film was done, to document that. It's really an immigration story, too.
So why would you, because Austrians, yes, we know they're good at skiing and stuff, but why would they pick that one aspect of their culture to bring over versus, cuisine or something that, I know that stuff backpacked with the skiing legend, but why do you think it was skiing? What is it about skiing that the Austrians hold on to so tightly?
That, in fact, has a lot to do with starting, and that's why it's called the film's called The Legacy. It really has a lot to do with Hannes Schneider, because what a lot of people don't know is skiing in many ways started through ski films, and people became aware even in America through ski films. And why is that? Well, there was the filmmaker Arnold Funk, but who was the star of the films? Hannes Schneider.
Right.
And so skiing became known around the world through Hannes, and then people saw the films and said, hey, I want to do that. Well, and who did you think of? You thought of the film star.
Right.
And then the film star had a ski school, so the people started to flock to there. And his method became like the international ski method, and then he became one of the main trainers of Austrian instructors. And when he left Austria and came here, there was also a very important person that took over from him, who was also involved in film. He was a filmmaker himself, Stefan Krukenhauser, who became known as the Pope of skiing over there.
Oh, really?
So literally, I mean, it sounds kind of cliche, but I found out the story really does have a very strong thread in that Hannes was kind of known as the god of Austrian skiing. And when he left, this guy who eventually became known as the Pope took over, and he sent a lot of Austrians, the Krukenhauser. So the film series, the first part is quite in depth because it's a long story, the Hannes Schneider story before the war and after the war.
It's an amazing story.
So there's part one, but then that's followed by then part two, and then eventually ends up with the heli ski pioneers in Canada.
So you start all the way back from the 1890s and come all the way to the present with the heli skiing.
Correct.
Now, I noticed a lot of the vintage footage. Where did you get all this stuff?
It was a combination of many different sources. I was lucky to work with a filmmaker in Vermont who has a lot of footage and works with the ski museum. But there were many other connections too. The New England Ski Museum, but there were other museums. There were, in fact, a lot of the stuff I got from the people I interviewed myself.
Oh, really? So they had it up in their attic, and they're like, "Here you go."
Yeah,
so
here you go, please, please. And I got some really nice mementos. In fact, even though I have some Austrian dress myself, I have an interesting story behind this. Someone came up to me and said, "I really like your jacket." And yesterday, and I said, well, you know what, it has an interesting story behind it, because this really is the product of the Austrian-American connection. This comes from Bill Lash, the founder or the first director of the Professional Ski Instructors of America.
Really?
And it ended up on my doorstep about a year ago, and I was in this big box. I said, what am I getting from him, even though he'd been very supportive of the film? And he went through his closet and he said, you know what, I don't really have a need for this. I should give this to Ian, and he sent it to me.
Oh, and, that's so cool. So now you're sweating it out here under the hot lights.
And he's also, he honored Herbert Schneider a number of years ago, along with some of the other pioneers in his veteran ski instructors, kind of like a ski hall of fame. Ski Instructors Hall of Fame.
Sure, yeah. Wow, that's a lot. Now, if people are like, all right, how do I watch this? You showed the first part over at the Weather Discovery Center last night.
Yes, and that was thanks to the North Conway Library. They were nice enough to help sponsor the show and get the word out. And I was so happy to, I've been trying to get the word out here to, I know there's some people in the Valley that have a connection to the story that would appreciate the full history in film. And so I was glad to get a nice audience yesterday, an appreciative audience. But I have a website, and it's called, you can go to culturefilms.com. That's the name of the company, because this is about a way of life. It's not just a sports film, a way of life. And www.culturefilms.com or legaski.com. Okay,
so either of those, they can actually purchase these DVDs if you'd like to watch them. There's 3 parts to it, and it says all divided into 2 DVD segments, and all 4 DVDs are approximately 50 to 55 minutes.
Well, part 1 is 2 DVDs, and then the following part, which is the Hannes Schneider story, and then part 2 and part 3 are both an hour.
All right, so it really is the relationship due to poverty, war, and a chance to make it in the land of opportunity. The immigrants from Austria all the way to America taught us how to ski, set up the whole thing, the romance, and
that's very much part of it. That I think the romance and the après ski and the culture way of life is something that we're losing, and I really wanted to document that. And I was lucky enough to get a little bit of it growing up at Mittersill, skiing in Mittersill.
Absolutely. Well, Ian, thank you so much. Quite interesting talking to you. And again, the websites are www.culturefilms.com and then legaski.com if you'd like to purchase these DVDs. So thanks again. It was a pleasure meeting you, and congratulations on your documentaries.
Thank you for having me.
I know it's a huge feat to accomplish. All right, folks, we're going to be back. We're going to give you another look at that Watch Win question for today, and another look at the weather. Thanks again, Ian.